Welcome to the Gamer Roses podcast! Because I was told to bring that level of energy, where the students have taken over, and we profess our love and hate for all things video games. Getting into it this week, we open with a steamy discussion about a recent release, Far Far West, and we move into a Passion UI project, and maybe a new revenue source for Steam. People are unable to get their hands on Valve's new controller as it sells out, while a few exploit the market. PlayStation loses a class action lawsuit and pays the lawyers instead of you. I get into Sci-Fi Dad Simulator Pragmata. It turns out Windrose was plundering your hardware while you played the new early access pirate game. Windows lets it slip that their bloat means they now recommend 32 gigs of RAM for systems, while also realizing the dire situation their OS is on the gaming side. Gabe Newell, Elon Musk, and Kojima all walk into a bar and apparently know each other. So despite the success, an update causes Slay the Spire 2 to bomb. First, getting into the steamy situation in Far Far West. For those of you who don't know, on May 1st? Recently, this last week, Far Far West, which was a game that had a beta available to it at one point that I and Tiger played, had a wonderful time. It's a co-op, third-person, like, robot sci-fi Wild West type of themed game where you have a couple of special abilities a la kind of Mass Effect style that you go in, and you have certain guns that you can level up, and you go complete actions, collect things, level up. It's a fun time with a unique view on it, and the maps are fun and have their own kind of flavor to it that we enjoyed. So if we ever get into that fully, we'll bring that back up again. So it is a good game, and we'll get into kind of the reviews that also illustrate that. But the controversy is that the co-op shooter is actually in violation of Steam's terms of service. Now, what could they be violating? Is it anything of the obvious? Well, there's an in-game robot character literally named Steamy, sporting a logo very similar to the actual Steam logo, asking players to leave a review on Steam. So, if there was any question about what was happening with the character named Steamy, I don't know how to explain it to you. During the interaction, Steamy explicitly mentions Gabe Newbot, which obviously the co-founder of Valve, being Gabe Newell, the connection is, again, obvious. Anyways, Rule 4.2 under user reviews explicitly states on Steam's platform that you don't ask customers to review your product from within your application, as Valve prohibits in-game prompts to prevent review manipulation. They want reviews to be organic reflections of players' experience rather than nudge or incentivize interactions triggered by the software itself. So, basically, let people review your game because it's good or bad. Don't incentivize people to do it. Otherwise, you get a no-no penalty. Anyways, it was already fixed. It just seems like, to me, this seems like the situation where they were having a little bit of fun in the game, and I mean, you see a lot of this stuff in other platforms and on mobile and all the kind of other stuff, and so as soon as somebody pointed out to them, they put out a pretty quick fix, which, as of this course being available was 4 days ago, that changed Steamy's dialogue and removed the request for reviews. So, again, this is a nothing burger. I just found it funny because of how completely blatant it was. If you're gonna go big, you might, or if you're gonna go bold, you may as well go big.
True. I didn't even know that this was a rule under the freaking terms of service.
Haven't you ever wondered why more games don't ask you to leave reviews?
No, I just thought everybody had to, they weren't assholes. Honestly, though, this makes me think, though, can the Apple Store and the Play Store implement that?
Probably could if they wanted.
That would be
sick. But then they'd have to enforce it. And if they take games down because
they don't have to take them down, they could just do shadow bans.
Yeah,
and removal from algorithms.
So players stop playing those games that are probably addictive pay-to-win games. those platforms get less money because they take a cut of the in-game payments. So, Valve doesn't care about that because they like to curate a healthy platform. I doubt Apple or Google necessarily care about that. Anyways, Far Far West, pretty big hit, especially for, an early access game. Sold 250,000 copies in the first 2 days and holds a 97% overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam with 11,000 reviews. The game's good. The developers were having a little bit of fun as there were obviously some initial outages because I doubt they were expecting this level of interest to the game. And so as they were having problems, the developers put out a Discord update claiming their service provider was currently drinking mojitos instead of helping.
Honestly, fair.
So if you can't tell kind of what their deal is, it's pretty much about fun. The most requested feature on the Discord isn't any sort of balance or new maps. It's for a dedicated yeehaw button.
Honestly, based.
I mean, yeah. Look, if I'm going to have sci-fi robot cowboys in the far, far west, I'd need a yeehaw button.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the exact same thing as Deep Rock Galactic, right?
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
Like
100%.
with the whole rock and stone thing. Yeah.
You gotta have it. Gotta have it.
Very, very needed.
For anyone currently playing it, thinking about picking it up, or has a friend that has it, there is a code, 250K Cowboys, so KCOWBOYS, which is a code that you can redeem for in-game celebrations because of the 250,000 copies sold. So anyways, cool game. I hope to play it at some point. I'll talk to Tiger when we both have time, and we'll probably pick it up and give it a go. Outside of that, I would normally not bring this up, but it is of particular interest to me because I grew up with the Xbox. So the original Xbox, and especially the 360, those original blades for the UI hold a special place in my heart. However, somebody really, really liked the original Xbox UI. That's the OG from 2001 Xbox. As somebody fully reverse engineered and ported that UI to run natively on PCs. So a little bit of a dedication to there. And while other attempts at this, because this is not the first time it's been available, those were just kind of visual skins and themes, whereas this project uses the full actual retail code from the original console and adapted it to operate on modern 3D desktop applications and game launchers. So
it's impressive.
I was gonna say some full-on dedication there. There's we could get into a little bit some translation layers and OpenGL stuff, but I don't feel like we really need to get into any of that specifics. If you want to take a look at it, it's UIX Desktop, aka Project Theseus. Go check it out. It's on GitHub. You can go kind of, have some fun with that yourself. So basically, it's a 3D launcher where you can manually add and launch Steam games from it. It does have the option, like it did in the original Xbox UI, importing local MP3 directories so you can play music, some skins that were available for that UI back in the day. There are developer tools available for people to use, yada, yada, yada. The reason I bring this up is A, because I love original and 360 Xbox stuff. B, why are there no Steam launcher like UI customizations available? Like full reskins?
I mean, I think the question, I guess, at that point would be, can the Steam launcher be accessed like that? Like, can you access its UI layer, right? And then secondly, the big game mode thing that kind of takes over the whole screen.
Sure.
My guess would be that's not popular enough for it really to ever
here's
get any of that.
I'm not even thinking like big game mode, right? Like you could, if you go to launch big game mode, it could just go into a default Steam big game mode. But on like the default PC launcher, which is kind of almost like an internal Steam browser,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really feel like reskinning that and adding some customization to it would be too crazy out of the realm of possibilities. Now, giving access to code would be a concern, I'm sure, for Valve. But I'm just thinking along the lines of, like, if you're enjoying a very popular game on Steam, like, why isn't there like a $2 DLC where you can, skin your Steam launcher to that game's theme?
Yep. I agree.
I mean,
It's the tiny things like that that people really get behind, that people will just spend, just a tiny bit of money here and there, and you'll make a ton of money just doing nothing.
let me ask you this. Before Wilds, if
Mhm.
there was a Monster Hunter Steam skin that your whole Steam was like Monster Hunter themed, is that something that would have interested you?
I'd probably still do it, to be honest.
Okay, fair. I mean, still now. I mean, if there was, so if there was like a whole reskin theme where it was the Monster Hunter font with Monster Hunter colors, you could have little fun icons, for store, library, community, your name, account, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I was like,
I'd probably still do it.
It just seems to me like this is an easy revenue stream where Valve could allow developers to do it with Valve taking a cut, and then obviously the rest of it going to the actual game developer that's doing it. I mean, I wouldn't mind like a Resident Evil 4 themed one or a Mass Effect one, although Mass Effect's too old at this point for it to actually happen because it's not relevant at the moment. There's all kind. I mean, a Pragmata one. I would love a Pragmata one. I would totally
That's
do that
fair.
at the moment. But I saw this whole Xbox UI thing, and I mean, I don't have it obviously in the script, but there's photos of it and visuals of it, and I'm like, oh man, that would be cool. Like, because it does talk about how it's a little bit of a difficulty to actually get your games kind of loaded for the system to recognize it and launch from there.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, there are bugs that I didn't include in the script. So, like, it's not perfect, but I was like, man, like, if I could get, like, an old school 360 Steam thing. Now, this would have to be a license with Microsoft, which I'm not sure they would ever do. But, like, if I could get that old school 360 blades where I'm flipping back and forth left and right with the blades, with the sound effects and everything,
Yeah.
going back and forth between store, library, and community, I would totally do that. 360 was my childhood, the Halo games and the Modern Warfares, the good ones. So I would love something like that. That would be cool. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, God, there's just no theming for Steam. That seems like a fun thing to have. So maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Maybe.
Is there anything for the Blizzard launcher? Do they have like Overwatch or WoW themes for the Blizzard launcher?
The extent of what they have for the Blizzard launcher is the ability to like customize your profile picture. That's it.
Super good.
Yep. Yeah. It's
At least you can customize your whole profile page on Steam with a lot of different stuff and backgrounds and things.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
showcases. You got showcases and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, meh. All right, I guess it is what it is. All righty.
It is indeed.
Let's move into more Valve news in business and econ. All right. As always, in over our heads, but we're getting into some business and econ stuff. The Steam controller that we mentioned last week. Are you shocked to find out that it's sold out in 30 minutes? I doubt they had an insane amount of stock. I'm sure they had a good amount of stock, but Valve is never the type of company to be like, yeah, we're going to sell 10 million of it, so we're ordering 10 million of it. So I bet it was a modest amount of stock as is, and for the value, it's a pretty good controller, and it's especially a unique controller that's very usable for kind of bridging the gap between controller and mouse for some PC games, where you kind of need some more precision for some stuff, but maybe don't need the full mouse type of thing. So, great controller for PC. So, I'm not surprised that it's sold out. Now, it was sold on the Steam store. So, interestingly enough, for potential lawsuits about using Steam funds and wallets that you get from the sales of digital goods, you could buy physical hardware with your Steam wallet funds. And a lot of people did, and there were some traffic issues initially as there was that rush to get it. And of course, scalpers. As always, with anything in high demand, immediately units started appearing on secondary markets, including eBay and others, with some listing the controller at $250 to $300, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I don't exactly know what Valve does for releases like this, if it's first come, first serve. I think the best way to handle any of this type of situation is to prioritize accounts that have active gameplay hours on it, and then do a lottery random system. So it doesn't matter when you're in line. Once the release time comes up, as long as you are in line, it's a random selection of who gets to purchase it first. Now, is that going to eliminate scalpers? No, because they're in line too. So some of them will be picked. But it does kind of stop people from botting to get all of, or a huge chunk of stock, as opposed to a few units, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, it's difficult. I wish there was an easy way to deal with scalpers, but the reality is that there isn't. Because, like, you can't just limit it to, like, IP address, right? You can't do that. Because, like, what if me and Demi both wanted to buy one, right?
Yeah.
So
but
that's
you both
just
do have Steam accounts with a long history and hours of games played on them.
true. That's very true. And I think that's probably the best way to do it. I'm talking about eliminating the scalpers on, like, a grand scale, larger than Steam, right?
I mean, fair. I mean, you could still do the random lottery on, like, let's say Best Buy for, like, a Switch release in the future, or a new PlayStation release in the future, right? So you could still do the lottery. And there's all kinds of all kinds of algorithms you can put into place to look at, account buying history, practices, people logged in and just surfing and looking without purchases. So you can add behind the scenes a trust factor for kind of legitimate accounts, assuming they care about their customers and want to get product in the hand of their customers. Most of these large corporations don't care. As long as they're selling, they don't really care who they're selling to. I would argue they should care, because if it goes to their customers and their customers aren't spending more money on scalpers, they can turn around and spend that money buying accessories at your store. If you have to buy, if a console costs $700 and they have to pay $1,500 for it on the secondary market, guess what? That's $800 they now can't spend at your store on accessories and extra games. So I don't know why these large chain stores aren't more concerned about it, because that's more potential money that their customers now don't have to spend at their location, which drives me nuts. It's so short-sighted.
Yeah.
But anyways, Steam did do a roundup and had a lot of accounts banned or listings removed from eBay. So it's not like they are at least not being proactive on making sure that it's not super prevalent around the third-party sellers on the internet. So that's good. I look forward to maybe picking one up at some point in the future. I don't have a reason to at the moment, but if a controller breaks, I'll be happy to get one. And it'll be interesting to see how the Steam machine goes once that actually releases.
True. Yeah, currently I'm pretty satisfied with my DualShock 5. Like, I just haven't seen a reason. There's
The
like
only bummer for me is I like offset joysticks, and
yeah.
the Steam controller has the same PlayStation joysticks where they're on that kind of lower position together. Because I've got such big ass hands and thumbs that, like, when they're together like that, my fingers touch.
That's
They get in
fair.
the way of each other, okay?
Honestly, there's some kind of optimization and
See, look at this.
innovation.
Look at this. You see this? Like, if this was a joystick.
Well, that's the problem. Your thumb's in the wrong spot. But there really is. There's some kind of like innovation, some kind of optimization that the controller and like mouse and keyboard companies could get together and do to be able to create something where you have a joystick on your like left hand, but you still have keys on your left hand too.
Yeah.
Right? To like be
like
able
on a
to
keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that'd be
even
cool.
or even just like buttons or something. Right? One of the biggest things that I find wild is that the back of the controller kind of remains unused on most controllers.
Yeah, unless you're
the
spending
Elite
the
is
money.
an exception.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I mean, there's pro versions of, the PlayStation controllers too. So unless you're dropping the extra dime, well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why the $100 Steam controller is so attractive, is because they do have the extra buttons on the back at that $100 price point instead of the $200 price point that you kind of have to get those extra buttons.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. Is that like, but even then, it's still just like what, a button on each hand?
No, I mean, I only put the 2 on here, but you can see there's space, so I took
I
those
see.
out. But this one does technically have 4 total.
I gotcha.
On the
Even though
Elite
there'd
2
still
is
be
what
2.
I have for people who can't, because we don't have the video ready yet.
Yeah.
But for the people who are listening, I have the Elite 2 Xbox controller. So
Yeah,
But,
I don't know. But yeah, something where you could either have like the joystick and you can still have a mouse. So like you could have a joystick for movement, you could still have your keys for the like button presses and stuff like that. And then you can still have the mouse for like aiming, right? There is some kind of innovation that could be done there, and I've seen some people try it here and there.
well,
It's difficult.
I forget what the name of the product is, but there is something that exists that's like a hand claw, and your thumb is the joystick, and then there's like 3 rows of keys for your
Murph has
fingers.
one.
So there are very unique things that exist like that, but
Yeah.
you have to get used to using them. There's no specific date for the next round of Steam controller units, so if you're interested, you're just going to have to keep an eye out. Alrighty, PlayStation lost a $7.85 million lawsuit, and by that, they settled. So they settled for $7.85 million in the Sosari et al. v. Sony Entertainment LLC. I don't know why I put that accent on, but I thought it was fun. Federal judge granted preliminary approval, so it is technically not official, but you're kind of at that endgame position with this kind of money settled and parties just to fully agree on it. Sony was sued for allegedly violating federal antitrust laws by eliminating competition in April of 2019. Sony stopped allowing third-party retailers like Amazon, Best Buy, and GameStop from selling digital download codes. Those were those codes that you could get on cards for, Steam money or Sony money for your account, or just the codes for online games in general or DLC. Who qualifies for this? That's going to be U.S. residents who purchased at least one eligible digital game from the PlayStation Store between April 1st of 2019 and December 31st of 2023. So, quite a large window, so there's chances are that you qualify for this if you've bought something on the PlayStation. To qualify, to qualify, the game you bought must have been previously available as a digital voucher at retail before the 2019 cutoff, and its price must have increased by at least 50 cents after the retail vouchers were pulled. If you have an active PSN account, you don't need to do anything. The funds will be automatically credited to your PSN wallet once final approval is granted, which is nice. If your account is gone, you must contact the settlement administrator by August 27th of 2026 to request a paper check. Now, how much money do you get, Haru? How much money? I mean, it's $7.85 million.
Yeah,
How much money?
$7.85 million divided by about 50 million people.
No. It's an estimated 4.4 million people are eligible.
All right, my guess would be 50 cents.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The lawyers get most of it.
Of course.
So, because the lawyers get most of it, you are basically correct. Between like $1 to $3. So, the jokes are plentiful, as you can't even afford a Fortnite or Call of Duty skin with that amount of money. The final approval for this settlement will be August 15th, 2026. I'm sure people are chomping at the bit to get their dollar.
I'm gonna jump on a soapbox here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
The whole point of these class actions is really to stick it to the company.
Sure, yeah.
But the problem that I have with that is that $8 million is fucking nothing.
To Sony, definitely.
Exactly. Right? This isn't a class action against some small business that
or
you know,
even a small
damaged.
chain.
Yeah, exactly. Or even a small chain. We're talking one of the largest entertainment companies in the world.
Not just entertainment, because even though this is Sony Interactive Entertainment, that's a portion of the larger than some country's GDP Sony conglomerate.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, man. It's ridiculous that we're suing this company and we settled for 8 million when their valuation is 122 billion.
Yeah.
We sued them and settled for less than 1% of the valuation of their company.
The worst is that I can guarantee you they made more money than the $7.85 million by a wide margin from making this change.
That's the problem with our legal system.
Making the change is just the settlement is just cost of doing business to them. It's just a budgetary line.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, they would choose to not lose $7.85 million. To be clear here, I'm not saying they're happy about it, but it's basically a write-off because this does not in any way hurt them. They definitely came out on top. And if you look at a lot of these lawsuit type things, most of the time, you know, you look at it and it's like, yeah, oh, there's a $200 million fine they have to pay the government. And you're like, oh, man, that's a lot of money. That hurts. And then the next line is they made 500 million. So it's like,
exactly.
Oh, so what you're telling me is they made 300 million. So by doing this very illegal thing, they made $300 million. At the end of the day, they just made $300 million. You think they care? Sure, they care. Do you think this is any incentive to not do it again? When the potential is making $300 million?
Exactly. This is actually incentive for them to do it again. That's the wild part.
The incentive is as long as we make enough money, we'll do it again.
Yep. Yeah,
we'll just 100%. Make sure we budget for a $10 million lawsuit. That's all they have to do.
Exactly. And I mean, could you, just throwing it out there, how to solve this problem, right? Find out the amount of money that they made during that whole process, sue them for that.
Yeah, or at least 80 to 90% of it, because then it becomes not worth it.
Right, exactly. And it needs to be that we cannot allow these companies to screw over the populace
and still end up on
top. That's the whole point of our legal system. They're not supposed to win. And while they paid out $7.85 million, if they made more than that, they won.
And by all of these retailers not taking a cut, I guarantee that they did.
100%.
So, that's a bummer. It's depressing. It is what it is. Even though it's depressing, if you qualify, you may as well go get your dollar and don't let Sony keep it.
Lawyers will just keep it.
I'm not wrong. So July 2nd, 2026 is the deadline to opt out if you want to sue Sony individually, which, good luck. August 27th, 2026 is the deadline for deactivated account holders to claim their $1 to $3 check. And October 15th, 2026 is the final court hearing for the payout for anyone that's interested or affected. Anyways, moving on to something awesome. Let's get into lab work. All right, lab work, where we analyze recent releases and one that I've actually played and completed. So
Oh, you finished it now.
I did. And we'll get into how finished I've done. But at the start here, I'll tell you that I have finished the main narrative campaign. I will avoid, to the best of my ability, any spoilers. So I won't ruin it for Haru. So he can go play it at some point and enjoy it. Just keep in mind that absolutely everyone dies at the end. Nothing is left alive. The universe becomes a dead wasteland. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
So before you even start
Just kidding, everybody.
Before you start this, I have to say, because you know how I am with certain things like video games, movies, animes, TV shows, things that I already know I'm going to enjoy. I tend to just completely blacklist them, right? They don't even show up on my radar. And if I do see it, I just scroll past it and move on. But I saw one thing, and it was a freaking YouTube video. I didn't click on it, but I saw the title, and it was hilarious to me. And it was, Pragmata made our generation of males want to be dads, and we ruined it.
Yeah, don't watch the video. There are some people that have ruined it, but they haven't ruined it for me. The experience was fantastic. And again, I'll mention like one or two things, especially things you find early, that are very obvious. But I'm not going to spoil specific experiences between the two characters because that is the meat and potatoes other than the actual gameplay. That pulls its weight for this title is the relationship between Hugh, which is the character you play, and the young AI character, which, like, she's adorable, first of all. So I will say that. But yeah, so I don't want to spoil any of those interactions because a lot of them, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of them will probably stay with me just because of how unique it was. And I will say, I had this discussion with somebody the other day. Do you know of the show Ted Lasso? Yeah. So Ted Lasso, a wholesome show. Is there some edgy things in the show? Sure. But overall, it's a wholesome show. I feel like people are thirsting for things that are good and wholesome. It's one of the reasons Hallmark is popular. However, I personally hate Hallmark. It is too far on the opposite end, where there's no conflict, there's no controversy, and to be quite honest with you, the acting is C-grade at best. So I'm not interested because nothing.
If you disagree, put it in the comments.
Yeah, please. I'm sure there's plenty of people that disagree. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care how much you disagree, you're wrong. There might be a couple talented people here or there. That's about all I'll give you. Overall, the acting on almost every Hallmark show is subpar. You know what? Send me all of your examples. Put them in the comments. I'll watch them. There's no way any of you are going to find any sort of extended example where you're like, yes, that person could win an Academy Award with this level of performance in a Hallmark movie. You're all delusional. I don't believe it. Now, with that being said, am I going to poo-poo you for enjoying what you enjoy on Hallmark? No, go have fun with it. There's all kinds of guilty pleasure TV shows that I watch because I enjoy them and fun. I recognize their faults and that everyone's going to enjoy them, which is my point here. But they exist for a reason. Anyways, off my soapbox. I feel like what we're missing currently as a society is wholesome content and good stuff. I feel like at some point, like kind of around the original Dark Knight Batman, which was very popular, that a lot of our media saw how popular and profitable these dark, edgy experiences could be. I mean, horror movies have always been a thing, but like the dark, edgy action movie, and all this. And so I feel like a lot of that's propagated to the point where the market became saturated. It
Mhm.
became too much. And, wholesome stuff for a while there was seen as too cheesy and yada, yada, yada. Somewhat the fault of, Hallmark. But, anyways, so seeing good shows with good level of acting and writing and good character development that pull you in and you get immersed like Ted Lasso, I am happy to see that change. And Pragmata is one of those. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a sci-fi adventure game that takes place on the moon at a research station that literally happens in like the first 10 seconds of the game. And like I said, your main character is Hugh, who is a systems engineer who has to find things that are going wrong with the station AI, with the main AI, Edis, being the protagonist of the game. So, Edis being an AI. That all happens right at the start. So, it's a fun experience. You go through, you find things. I think the bread and butter that comes from here is outside of the character bonds, which again, I don't want to go into too much because I don't want to spoil it, but it's wholesome. There's fun and cute things that'll go on. I guess a couple of things I'll tell you is there are collectibles that you find on the maps. And I will say this game has done collectibles correctly. It's a refreshing pace. It's not 500 random collectibles for me to go seek out in stupid, small, ridiculous corners. The map design is fantastic. So you could be moving through a section. There's a glass window. I can see a case with a collectible on the other side of it. Awesome. I need to figure out how to get to that if I want that collectible. Great game design because it's putting it in my path to see. Or, I'm coming out into a level so I'm elevated and off in the distance I can see something up high that I can collect. Right? So they've designed the maps well enough that things end up in your line of sight, or there's visual cues. There's another collectible that has an audio cue. So I've missed things, but the game sets you up for success. If you want to go find those collectibles, it doesn't make them super annoying to go find and collect. Now, obviously, there's game guides that are online if you want to speedrun it, but just naturally, I feel like as I went through, probably without, and I don't want to say without trying, because like I said, I could see it, so I went and sought it to go get it, right? So without having to backtrack, I guess is what I'm going to say, I probably collected 65% to 70 of the collectibles without having to backtrack. Again, sought them out, so I still had to spend time going to finding them, but it wasn't impossible.
Right.
The other side of that is the map. So there's 5 or 6 main sections, and then in that section, you have parts of it that are cordoned off, and if you go into your menu, it actually shows you the collectibles in that section and whether or not you have them. So if you know and it'll give you a percentage of how many you have in that section. So if you know you're at 90%, you go look at it. It tells you you're missing one of a specific collectible. You can go to that section to find it. No problem. Again, collectibles done right. One of the collectibles you can find, you can give to your AI friend, aka the little adorable girl, who does interactions and other stuff with it. This is as far as I'm going to go into it. So there's also incentive to go find those if you want those types of interactions to happen. Outside of collectibles, which again, I think they've done fantastic and correctly, the combat is unique and fun. So your main character, Hugh, does all the shooty, dodgy stuff, and your cute, adorable friend rides on your back, and she does all the binary things.
The binary things.
Yeah, so if you need to hack a door, she's hacking the door. Now, she's technically doing it, but you're doing it. So, the door hacking minigame is really straightforward. Basically, X, Y, A, B. You click it to line up circuits, and it rotates circuits. You have to line them all up, and the door opens. It's simple, but there are times where you're under a timer. So the difficulty becomes, I have to do this. You also do that same hacking mechanic to trigger environmental hazards. So there's also enemies around you while you're trying to do that. Outside of that, enemies take a lot of damage if you don't hack them and open up weak points. And the way the hacking works in combat is you hold left trigger, which is also your aim. So you're essentially aiming at an enemy. It pulls up a little square window that takes up, I want to say, like slightly under a third of the top right of your screen. And it's translucent, so you can see what's going on behind it. And you basically have to trace a path to a finish point. So it's a little green circle. There's squares. You have to navigate to that point. Now, depending on the enemy, some squares may be hazards. Some squares may just be blocked off that you can't get past. You can also have mods that if you pass through them, give you bonuses or have effects like a multi-hack where it'll hack enemies also around this one enemy. A stun, yada yada yada. You can go explore that for yourself. So the mini game of hacking becomes the most prominent thing. Yes, you still have to shoot enemies to do enough damage to not have a slogfest, and repeatedly hacking enemies over and over in a short period of time has a reduced efficacy on the damage applied. So the gameplay loop is hack the enemy, shoot the enemy, rinse and repeat. Dodge, don't die. Dodge things that are happening around you. There are a few enemies that are fast and move fast. Most of them kind of move at a standard pace that have clear attacks that will be fast. So the danger comes from multiple enemies on screen. I never really felt threatened, except for obviously boss battles with one or two enemies on screen. It was just kind of easy to take care of. I will say that there is no hard mode until you beat the game, and standard was comfortable, is the way I'm going to describe it. I actually started using a mod that increased my weapon damage by 20% and reduced my health by 50%, and actually chose to upgrade my health last. So I basically turned standard mode into somewhat of a hard mode for me because I could take like one or two hits before I died. So I kind of made my own challenge. Now, I will say, I feel like the game would have been better if it had the hard mode from the outset. Not for me, because I do like to go through kind of a standard mode initially especially on a narrative game like this, to experience the story without going through the challenge. But for people that do really hard Monster Hunter stuff or Dark Souls stuff, it's probably going to be a lot easier. Now, I don't know for all those people if they're going to be able to handle the focus on the hacking while dodging and paying attention to things that are happening on screen, because even though Dark Souls people are very talented in, doing a lot of those hard boss battles, it operates a little differently. So for those people, I don't know if it'll be the same. But for me personally, who's not a Dark Souls person, like I said, I made my own challenge to make it a little bit more difficult, because I definitely didn't feel fully threatened most of the time. There are challenges that you unlock as you go through the game, where there's like a virtual combat simulator where you basically A clear, B clear, C clear for these challenges that give you different rewards for each level of clear that you do. So those will add a little bit of a challenge to people if you want to get all three. Now, you can complete A, B, and C in different runs, but it does give you a tiny little crown if you complete all three on one run. So if you want to make your own, challenge again, you can go do that type of stuff. There are plenty of unlocks on the first playthrough with skins, mods, hacking mods. So there's, like suit mods, health mods, weapon mods, hacking mods. And then there's also the specific, and I don't want to say hacking mods because there's hacking mods that, hey, you do 20% more hacking damage. And then there's, I forget the name of it, but there were actual modifications to the hacking minigame where it drops in those extra tiles. So there's plenty of things to unlock. I think there was about 4 weapons for each category, 2 primary weapons that have unlimited ammo, and then you had about 4 damage dealing weapons that you can unlock, like a shotgun, a charged laser, a photon beam type thing, and missile launcher, and then I think there was one other thing, and then there's tactical ones. The tactical ones were a stasis field, a grenade launcher with knockback, one that actually reduced the hacking window, so it actually compresses it if you hit enemies with it. So on boss enemies, it instead of a super large hacking window with negative effects, you hit it, it removes all the negative effects and then also compresses it down, which I think is a interesting way to have tactical weapons in the game. There was one that compressed the window, and then there was one that removed negative effects. I apologize. Those were 2 different ones. And then there were one last utility weapon set where you could deploy a decoy, you could deploy a bubble shield, and you could deploy a hacking mine where you deployed a mine and then you could hack it. And those hacking effects that I talked about, you could actually apply it to the mine and it would kind of repeatedly go off right after you hacked it. So you could put it down on the ground, kite some enemies into it, and then hack it with whatever effects you wanted that you have equipped, and then it would continuously go off. It does a lot of damage. So a lot of unique gameplay elements. There's also a mechanic where instead of wanting to do weapon damage, you could choose to do heat buildup, where enough heat buildup, enemies get stunned, and you can walk up and hit right trigger and do a whole bunch of damage at once. Where, you're trading the weapon damage for kind of a stun, heavy damage instance. So there's all kinds of different build outs you could do that make it interesting. So I appreciate that it wasn't just this, shoot things in face, move on to next level type stuff. You could actually kind of customize how you wanted to play and experience it. It's a well-rounded game. It was delayed heavily, with
Right.
it originally revealed in 2020. And for those of you keeping track of time, we're in 2026. So that would be 6 years later. So they didn't start development in 2020. They partially revealed it and then delayed it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And what's that?
For those who are not keeping track of of time, surprise, it's 2026.
We're not in COVID anymore. One of the scuttlebutt is that the gameplay and hacking mechanic initially didn't work and wasn't fun. I will say they nailed it. It was a rewarding gameplay loop. It was the different varieties of enemies they threw at you with the amount of enemies they threw at you. Once I whittled it down, the last ones I wasn't ever scared about, but initially in some of those starting fights, it was hectic, so I never got bored with it. That being said, like I said, it's a little bit easy, so I think a lot of people will appreciate it more in kind of a harder mode. I did finish the game, which unlocks the hard mode and unlocks a mode called Unknown Identity or Unknown Intruder. I can't remember which one. Which basically reveals a new section of a map that you can go to where it unlocks 10 supposedly very difficult simulations. Now, the simulations it unlocks are on the level of difficulty you're playing. So it's a standard version of the supposedly very difficult thing to do, as opposed to playing the game on hard and doing it on a hard mode where it would be supposedly a little bit more difficult. I looked that one up because I'll tell you, just like I've been saying this whole time, they weren't very difficult. I would say I went through all 10 in probably an hour. Well, that's not true. Probably 2 hours, because to unlock some of them, you have to go complete harder versions of the bosses you've already beat in the game. So it probably took me between an hour and 2 hours, but it was not difficult. They were pretty straightforward. But it was at least more content, and it gave you more of the unlock resources, and it unlocks an awesome endgame weapon and outfits for both characters. Like, there's so many outfits to unlock throughout the game through various means. I haven't even gotten into like a little mini bingo game with the resources you collect that you can connect bingos and unlock even more weapons, mods, and character outfits. I was so happy that there were so many unlocks in the game rather than going to the Steam page and seeing 10 different outfits for purchase on DLC. And this is a Capcom game we're talking about. So I was honestly surprised, pleasantly surprised. It harkens back to an era of gaming that we all miss, where those types of things were included in the game, where you could strive for them, go find them and unlock them. And it was great. And like I said, there's that one extra end game mode that you can go do with like a crazy suit for each person. But during the game, there were plenty. I think there were probably like 8-ish character outfits for each character that you can unlock. Great. I mean, I'm just asking for some. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but completing that extra challenge levels does give you a very specific mod that you can equip that supposedly gives you an alternative ending if you go back and complete the final boss. I have not done that yet. I was trying to do it. I wasn't able to complete it before this this episode. So I obviously wouldn't spoil it anyways, but right. I will say the original ending was satisfying, is the way I'm going to describe it, because I don't want to give anything away, but I will say I was satisfied with the story that I got.
So let me ask a couple questions about the difficulty, because you mentioned a couple of times now that the standard mode, it seemed pretty comfortable, relatively simple for someone who plays as many video games as we do. What does the hard mode actually do?
Well, I haven't started it yet, so I would have to look it up, to be honest with you.
Does it describe what it does?
So from what I've seen is like making hacking a little bit more complicated, some more enemies with health.
See, that was kind of my concern.
Well, right? But here's the thing. With the hacking being more complicated, because I tried that last boss, which gets upgraded, right? Mm. With this mode that I'm playing. Now, to be granted, I had been playing for a while, and this was late at night, so I was kind of a little afraid at that point. Kicked my butt 3 times in a row. So, now to be fair, I still had that mod equipped that reduced my health heavily. So I was taking like the 2 hits and dying, to keep that in mind. So what I imagine is that it focuses on shorter weak point openings, right? Because every time you hack it successfully, it opens the weak points. So I'd imagine that time frame is heavily reduced and that the hacking is a little bit more difficult. Which I think that would be the way to go rather than just adding more health, because you have to survive, right? You have to dodge. Mm-hmm. Oh, your hacking does stay in the place you left it when you dodge, unless you're hit. So if you're hit and take damage, then the hacking board resets. Mm. So you can start your hack, let go, dodge, get to a safe place, re-engage, and continue it, which I think is the right way to approach it, because some of the bosses where the hacking board is large and complicated, it would be so obnoxious to start from square one every time. Now, again, if you get hit, you start from square one, that's the penalty. That would be my guess, is that's where that goes. But I would have to look it up to be certain.
Okay, fair enough.
But I do, like I said, I think the game could have enemies with a little bit more health, because from the bat, it was pretty straightforward and comfortable. I never really felt too challenged. Think I died once before the final 2 levels. So, it is what it is. But it was fun. I never didn't feel like I was having fun in combat, is what I will say, though, at least.
Okay, fair. So, in your opinion, because I know you've played Monster Hunter at this point, at least one of them, and I know you've played Resident Evil. Which one is it more likely to follow that style, right? Because they obviously want to create more of these games in the same IP. Is it more likely to follow the sauce that is Resident Evil or Monster Hunter?
In what way? Like, follow how?
Like, in terms of the design, right? So Resident Evil is more linear. You're more focused on just like playing through a story. Whereas Monster Hunter is more about the open world, the grind, and stuff like that.
I would. So, on a lot of the levels, there are impediments that are placed on the maps that you have to figure out a way around, and then you can remove those impediments so that when you come back through looking for collectibles, it's a lot easier to get around. So basically, I have to take Route B to move on, but to take Route B, I have to go to A first, do a thing. Then I have to go to B first, and then because I went to A, it unlocks Route B. Then I can take Route B, get around, clear, or Route C, get around, clear Route B, and now Route B is open, right? Like, the middle lane is now open.
That sounds very similar to like the Metroidvania style.
It is definitely not open world. It is a linear... Well, it's not linear. There are roundabout ways to go through levels, but it is a tailored experience that is not open world. It is not open world. But it's not on rails. It is a linear experience that isn't on rails, so you could explore, and there were different things to find and routes to take. Being a big Resident Evil 4 fan, it definitely, I mean, by the nature of where the game is set, it never felt claustrophobic or restricted like any of the Resident Evil games were. I could, from where the story has ended, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, or any spoilers, but from where the story has ended, I could see them moving into more of an open world type of thing with map impediments like we've seen, depending on what they wanted to do with the follow-up, which, by the way, this has been successful enough that they have already said they do plan on continuing the series with how popular the characters and IP has been. So there will be something eventually. Keep in mind, with how delayed this was, they had no idea that this was going to be successful, so literally production probably started yesterday. So do not expect it for a long time.
Right. I mean, we've said it before on this podcast, and we'll probably say it a million times more. A delayed game is... Yeah, exactly. Like, a released game is bad now. A delayed game could be good later.
So, well, it's from Nintendo, right? I don't remember which Nintendo executive, but yeah.
I don't remember either.
A bad game is bad forever. A delayed game is only delayed until it comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the point being, and this was obviously a time before updates, right? Because you couldn't update your game. So if you put out a bad game, it was bad. You couldn't update the game. Now we've already talked about No Man's Sky. Yeah, you can have redemptions. But the point being here, they delayed this game for 6 years. It probably cost a lot of money to make. I would doubt that they've actually made any sort of profit on it. They might have broken even.
Right.
Especially because this was supposedly a smaller team led by a younger generation of developers. So you probably don't necessarily have a lot of veterans who have high salaries on this either. Maybe to push it over the line towards the end.
Right,
So
possibly.
the development costs probably just come from the duration and time spent on it rather than anything. But it could definitely be successful in the future. So to go back to your original thing, I could see it becoming open world, but it would be a more tailored open world experience. It couldn't be Monster Hunter where wherever you want to go, you go. Just because a lot of that gameplay was built around figuring out how to get around obstacles and deal with stuff and to open things up to you and to explore. Now, I could be pleasantly surprised. There's a realm in which, sure, if they wanted to do a full open world game, they could probably make it work, but I would imagine they're not going to go too far away from this recipe in whatever future title they do.
I think the furthest that it could probably ever go is the Horizon series, where
I could see that, yes.
That series is technically open world, but until you unlock certain things, you're kind of restricted to a smaller open world.
Well, and a lot of times you're going into dungeons,
right,
which are very linear experiences in Horizon.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes.
Yeah, just like from what I know of the game, I'd be very surprised if they followed the Monster Hunter theme. And they're probably going to follow the more Resident Evil story-driven theme with this series.
Oh, well, I mean, I could see your Horizon relation as where they could go. But it does have to be it needs to be a tailored experience for sure.
Yeah.
I will say, now, I have a 9800 X3D, and I have a 5080, and I have 64 gigs of RAM in my computer. So, I want to preface that I do have a nice computer, and I recognize that not everyone has that, because I don't want to be Randy Pitchford. But the game did run pretty much flawlessly on my system. Your mileage may vary. From the reports I've seen, it's been pretty good for most people. There were some issues on PlayStation, especially because the game was running at like 864p as opposed to 1080p.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some room for improvement, but the game looked gorgeous on my system. A lot of the sci-fi aspects and the lighting and stuff was very cool with ray tracing. So there was a lot of cool visual effects that happened. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but kind of the things that are going wrong in the world and the material that's affecting things has a very unique look, and that was cool to see around the map. The sci-fi stuff was visually very compelling. The enemy designs and the map area designs were very cool. I loved exploring and seeing the new places. I mean, there's pretty much 5 unique biomes that you go to, so there was something new to experience as you played the game, which was very cool. So the combat was well thought out, is interesting, is unique, visually was wonderful, and the story and the narrative experience as you explore the bond between these two characters dealing with the conflict on the moon was all wonderful. So, if you have the money, or at least put it on your wish list, I would highly recommend putting this on your radar, picking it up and playing it and supporting it, especially if you want something more wholesome and, you want to be a cool sci-fi dad that blows up basically robots with your daughter that hacks them. So I did appreciate, now I know you haven't been following social media, so unfortunately you missed out, but there was a bit of brilliant Capcom PR. Did you see this on social media?
I've heard about it.
Where the AI girl character that's your partner, her name is Diana, hacked basically all the other Capcom social media accounts and was like posting on the Monster Hunter account and was posting on the Resident Evil account and all this kind of stuff, and the community was interacting with it and sending photos, and Capcom PR was, in Diana's style, obviously, replying to it. So it was just a fun interaction that existed on the internet that, again, was more wholesomeness. It was more nice and fun stuff. I'm sure there were negative people saying negative things, but I didn't have to see any of it.
Yeah,
So.
who cares? Yeah, it's funny because I follow the Monster Hunter primary account, obviously. But not only do I follow it, I get notifications from it on my phone. So when they popped up, I read them and I was like, that's not a Monster Hunter thing.
Yeah, they started off the first post with Diana just doing a bunch of binary, 100
Yeah.
101. That was the first post because she was quote unquote hacking it. And then after that, she, posting regular things that she wanted to post.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whoever's in charge of Capcom PR, I mean, just like hats off to you because that was a brilliant piece of marketing that everybody loved. Well, except for the haters, but who cares about them?
Screw them. They're not real people.
Alrighty. I'm going to move on from here. I could talk about the game more, but we've hit the main points. Go experience it. Have fun. The longer I talk about it, the more I risk spoiling something for Haru. So I'll let him have fun with the game. And maybe way later on, we'll have a spoiler discussion about it further on that we'll put at the end of the course. Alrighty. Let's move on to shop class. Alrighty, so shop class. We're taking a look at Rogue AI on the Moon today. No, I'm just kidding. Alrighty, Windrose. We mentioned Windrose before, but that was the early access Black Flag game that wasn't Black Flag because Ubisoft can't make Black Flag apparently. Anyways, it's an early access pirate game that people wanted. You get on a ship, you go do pirate things with your buddies, have fun. So it's what people wanted from Black Flag that they never got. Turns out, it was actually destroying your SSD.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, not intentional, obviously. There's no maliciousness here, despite my puns about your system being plundered. Basically, what was happening is that under the right conditions during normal gameplay, it was writing up to 108 gigs of data on the user's SSD every hour.
That's wild.
Yeah. The issue persisted even when players were standing still in their base. Some server owners reported up to 35 gig of writes per hour with no players connected. Playing the game for several hours a day could technically exhaust your drive's lifespan in under a year, because for anyone who doesn't know, SSDs have a limited lifespan. You can only read and write and rewrite over data, because when you delete something, you're technically not getting rid of that data. You're opening up that portion of the drive to be rewritten over when you delete data, unless you specifically go do it in a more permanent way, which we're not going to get into here. That's what's happening. And so drives have a limited lifespan of rewriting over that data over and over and over and over again. So at some point, you're unable to do that anymore. That's why there's plenty of programs that exist where you can actually go look at the health of your drive and see what your drive, like how much kind of life is in it by a percentage-based indicator. For example, on my previous computer, because I didn't really do anything except have my OS on a smaller boot drive, that health of that boot drive over 7 years went down to 90%. I wasn't doing a lot on it. It was just getting Windows updates and some smaller things on it that I wasn't doing a lot. Keep in mind, mostly used this particular PC for gaming, so I wasn't necessarily doing a lot of work on it. For someone else, over the span of a few years, and by few, like 4 or 5 years, if you have a heavy work computer that you're constantly saving, rewriting on, video editing would be a big thing that's going to read and write data a lot. You could potentially drop down to like a 70% health lifespan if you're doing a lot of that type of stuff. So that's kind of where you're at. The root cause of Windrose specifically, as the game was utilizing RocksDB, which is an embeddable persistent key value store for its save system. It was running 3 separate databases for players, accounts, and worlds. And the analysis is that the operating system was operating with an extremely small write-ahead log with a budget of 1 megabyte.
Why?
I don't know. So the small budget forced the game to constantly flush and compact the data, turning minor in-game changes into massive physical disk write traffic.
Jesus.
Now, they did patch it out. So as of patch 0.10.0.4, which was released on April 30th, it reduced the disk writes by 60 to 75%. While significantly safer, it still is some pretty heavy usage comparable to other games. So be careful. You may want to avoid this game until they can fully complete it or fix it, because your drive has a finite lifespan, and drives are memory, and memory is currently expensive.
True.
So unless you have an old drive that you don't care about that the game is loaded on, you may want to avoid playing this game for a while. All right, end of that PSA. Moving on to Windows, and more discussion about memory. As Microsoft officially updated, and this is past tense, its gaming guidance designating 32 gigs of RAM as the future-proof no-worries configuration for Windows 11. Previously, it was at 16 gigs, which was demoted from that gold standard to a practical, quote-unquote, practical starting point, essentially meaning 16 gigs has become the new 8 gigs. So, if you needed to multitask, you needed 16 gigs according to Microsoft. The new guidelines emphasize that while 16 gigs can run games, 32 gigs is required to handle modern gaming stacks, the game itself, plus Discord, background browsers, and streaming tools without any sort of performance degradation.
Which,
Now,
I mean, it's kind of accurate.
Now, to be fair here, extra RAM isn't necessarily going to increase your top end frames per second that you're getting, but it will improve your 1% lows, to be specific here. So it's not like dropping 128 gigs of RAM into your system is going to get you a nice competitive gaming advantage at 4K, but it will reduce stuttering. I should say that on Pragmata, I did experience stuttering.
So
New section.
it was cleaning.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. So I will say I did encounter it, but it never affected gameplay. So your RAM is only going to really negatively affect your gaming and performance when you want to multitask, or if you're not meeting a minimum threshold, to be fair, if it's a bottleneck. Interestingly enough, Microsoft deleted this guideline 24 hours after publishing it.
Weird.
Yeah, there was a lot of backlash, and I would argue a lot of that backlash comes from the fact, Arrow, why do you think Windows is using so much more RAM than it previously was?
Well, something Windows 11 features don't actually work. Something AI.
Wow, you nailed it. Copilot. Yes, a bunch of the, things not working correctly you said, but a lot of this usage is also coming from Microsoft trying to implement Copilot into everything, as potentially taking 4 to 8 gigs of a footprint in your system memory. So, yeah, you can also blame AI for this one.
Yep. I can blame AI for so many things nowadays. I'm getting to the point where I can blame my relationship problems on it.
Have you gone to AI to ask for help?
No, never.
AI, how do you help fix my relationship problems caused by AI?
AI, please teach me some very good knots.
I mean, no. Oh my God. Yeah, well, because my mind went to knots, as in what not to do. Because you were having relationship problems. I was like, oh, he's asking for things to avoid, like pitfalls. And then I was like, wait a minute. This is Harrow. He wouldn't ask for that.
Perfect. No, honestly, I mean, we've talked about it so often, though. Freaking Windows. just Microsoft in general, dude. Stop forcing dog shit on us. Just stop forcing anything on us. Like,
Well,
I want one thing and one thing only, and it's a stable operating system that I can do what I want to do on it.
and good knots. Before we move on, I will point out that with the Steam hardware server, there was actually a drop in 32 gig adoption, mainly because it's so expensive. So I do find this interesting. They're like, you should have 32 gigs to help deal with our AI. Well, it's the most expensive thing possible, and less people are using it. But there is hope on the horizon, as there's basically, without it ever being super fully officially announced as of, well, the research that I did, there is a Windows 11 quote-unquote Project K2, which is a trust and quality initiative at Windows. It is not a new OS, so this is not Windows 12, but an internal marathon of updates focused on performance, craft, and reliability. It is being described by industry analysis as a please don't leave retention campaign aimed at power users and gamers. It's literally the crap. The people that use our operating system the most are unhappy and actually leaving. And I'm going to skip forward just a little bit, Haru, but a lot of this probably stems from the fact that on Valve's OS survey, Linux has now hit a new high of 5%.
Damn. That's actually pretty high.
Yes, which is why a lot of people are speculating that Microsoft is going, crap, there's other viable options. We may need to provide a streamlined version for power users and gamers, or else they'll leave to get better performance.
And who supports all of their family and their technology? The power users. So if we swap, they're coming with us.
That's true. It's 100% true.
I think that like companies like Microsoft don't really think about that.
Well, they are now.
They don't have a choice now.
So for the first time, Microsoft is reportedly moving away from feature velocity focus towards a more latency and overhead reduction. So performance targets, a start menu rewrite currently being rebuilt in WinUI 3. Internal builds show up to a 60% more responsive usage, more RAM optimization. A major goal is to significantly lower idle RAM usage, which is ballooned in Windows 11 due to a lot of background telemetry and AI processes, which we literally just mentioned. File Explorer improvements targeted at instant file name search and snappier navigation under heavy system loads. Thank goodness. I hate searching for files on Windows. It takes forever.
And it didn't used to.
No, especially when I have super high performance SSDs in my system.
Yeah.
It should not take that long.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Also, there is a focus with the new Xbox CEO, which I am actually happy to see. And this is official on an AI pullback where Microsoft is reportedly winding down aggressive integration of Copilot. This was confirmed on May 5th that Copilot is being removed from mobile and console interfaces to address friction.
Hi, can I just uninstall it? Thanks.
I mean, yes, I'm on board. Project K2 is basically the foundation for what is supposed to be Helix, which is the next Microsoft console we talked about, which is basically a console PC hybrid with a super reduced overhead operating system. This is basically what the K2 is basically going to be the operating system for Helix. And you and I nailed this discussion where we said if they could make a version of that applicable to everybody else, where it was, yeah, here's your gamer version of Windows with super reduced overhead, we would be on board. This would be great. I would love to install this in my system. I use this computer for like 85% gaming and 5% podcast recording and 10% everything else.
Yeah.
So this would be great. I like that they've actually have a little bit of self-reflection here and understanding that they have a problem. You don't often see that. But apparently the benchmark to scare them at Microsoft was 5% Linux adoption.
Man, I just need to go out and buy like 15 extremely weak computers, install Linux on it, and then create Steam profiles. And just everybody needs to go out and do that.
Why not go to what is it? What is the sale where they sell business equipment on the cheap? Well, there's like a term.
I have no idea, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, just go buy a bunch of those old school company computers and install Linux on those. You can buy those for very, very cheap. We all do it. We could probably increase it pretty high. Anyways, some tech enthusiasts have nicknamed K2 the Exorcist update because its main goal is to cast out the various AI and advertising demons, which I love. I hope that they legitimately have some self-reflection enough to actually call it the Exorcist update. I would be so happy. I could not even express this to you.
Honestly, Sharma's changes and like the things that she's doing really surprised me.
Yeah, I honestly did not expect it.
Right, especially like being someone who came from the AI side.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would think she would ultimately push it more. But the fact that she hasn't, and in fact is actually exercising them, it's a wild flip.
I mean, it could possibly be because she was so engrossed in it. She could see that it needs to be more targeted, right? Like there's specific applications where you could train an AI system for to be really good at, but once you try to shoehorn it into everything, it kind of just bogs everything down.
Yes.
So it could be that she just was so familiar with it, she's like, yeah, this isn't the right way to approach this. But I was with you. I was expecting rah, shove it into more places. I was expecting her to say, hey, I know how to do the knots, and I'm going to apply AI.
The AI is what's knotting up my system. Figure it out.
Alrighty. Anyways, I'm glad she's moving in a different direction. This seems like a great course correction that I'm happy to see. I hope it comes to fruition and we actually get access to it on our regular personal computers at home. We will see. Moving on, civics and sociology. Alrighty, everyone circle up. Let's take a look at some aspects of the gaming community. We're still talking about AI, because we always will, but internal emails from October 2018 were unsealed for revealing a high-profile crossover between Valve, Kojima, and SpaceX and OpenAI. So, the lawsuit for this OpenAI kind of thing that's happening has revealed a lot of these kind of email conversations between people that invested into OpenAI originally, and one of them was Gabe Newell, who actually invested $20 million initially, seeing that AI could be good in the world, and I believe that he truly could have a good vision for it and could see it, even though it's become a monstrosity since then. But I love this story because Gabe Newell contacted Musk following a meeting with Hideo Kojima at Valve. Kojima had some interest, and Newell praised Kojima as a real visionary and noted that he placed significant importance on AI for some of his new games, including Death Stranding and early concepts for other stuff. Newell told Musk that Kojima talks about how much he wants to go to space and asked Elon Musk to host him for a SpaceX tour of the rocket factory. Musk was very receptive and said, sure, it would be great to meet Hideo Kojima. He's welcome to see the rocket factory. This whole thing is just so far over the common person.
Yeah.
I just love, the gaming guru with his own frickin' hundreds of millions of dollars yacht, whose friends with the gaming icon of decades that's very respective, put him in contact with the guy who incentivized and made popular electric vehicles and commercialized space travel with reusable rockets. Like, this is just all fantasy to me. This is
Yeah.
this is a Hallmark movie right here. Like this like you know, there's some, you can make one of these characters the love interest, and then the other two
But who would
are
it be?
Kojima. Kojima would be the
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
You know, Gabe is Kojima's best friend, and he knows the high end rocket man who sends him to go meet him on a fated trip. Man,
I think there's a song in there somewhere.
I mean, I'm sure there is. Goodness. But yeah, so fun stuff in there. I just kind of put this in here because I found the whole thing interesting, because in no realm would I like, if someone had told me the story, I'd be like, yeah, that's a cool, like, creepypasta thing you found on the internet or whatever. Like, no, that's an actual thing. All right. Anyways, moving on from that fun little tidbit. Slay the Spire 2. If you go look right now, Haru, Slay the Spire 2 has a mostly negative review rating.
Well, I'm going to check.
Do it. Pull it up. I'm telling you.
Slay the Spire
2.
And that is its recent reviews. Yes.
Now, I will like to say that what is more important, the recent reviews or the overall reviews? Because most of the time, especially if you looked at Helldivers would have negative recent reviews, especially with the PSN stuff and connection problems and all that kind of stuff. Recent reviews are a great indication of what the current health of a game is. If you go look at an old game, recent reviews will often tell you if the game is still playable, or if the developers have abandoned it, or if the developers have heavily modified it so it's now microtransactioned into oblivion. You know, recent reviews are very useful. And Slay the Spire 2, unfortunately, has very negative. Now, if you look at those reviews by language, you'll notice that the simplified Chinese audience has submitted over 74,000 mostly negative reviews. While
Weird.
What's that?
Weird.
Yeah, right? While basically everybody else is either drawed or positive. So the total review count being at 157 means that amount of reviews has dropped the review score heavily. This came from a nerf to a specific build where the massive balance was past targeting infinite combos, specifically the card Prepared, which was a fan favorite zero cost skill card that discarded one and drew one, which was renamed to Prepare and changed the cost to 1 energy. Boss got a buff as well, which included mechanics that specifically punished players for playing more than 10 cards in a single turn, effectively hard countering the infinite deck strategies. The developer's intent, Mega Critics stated that the game was comically easy at high ascension levels due to unintended card interactions, and wanted to ensure early access period provided a legitimate challenge. Now, this affected everybody, right? So why specifically Chinese players? Well, it's because they don't have free speech here. The Great Firewall of China, if you don't know, China and all its netizens are behind a government firewall, and you're not supposed to get out of that firewall, and most people can't. And within the network of China on the inside of the firewall, everything is heavily monitored by the Chinese government, restricted. Some things are banned. You can't do other things. You can't access certain stuff. Yada, yada, yada. They approve everything or ban it. So Western social media platforms like X and Discord are fully blocked, meaning channels that people would use to contact or express their displeasure to this Western developer are unavailable to them. Which means, including forums, this is also forums too.
Right.
Which means they only have access to Steam reviews to express their displeasure. Which is where they went to in droves to express their displeasure.
It's wild what happens when your free speech is taken.
Yeah, it affects the countries with free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Man, not trying to alienate any Chinese listeners out there, of which I think we have none. So it doesn't really matter at the moment. But in the future, if you disagree with us, you can tell us why. You can tell us why your country is the best, and we'll make sure to add social credit to your account. Anyways, Mega Credit Stance, the co-founder, Anthony Giovanetti, addressed the backlash, noting that no change is necessarily permanent in early access, but urged players to use the in-game report a bug / feedback tool rather than the review section, which I think is very fair. Like, if you have a problem and your playstyle has been affected, yes, you can send that report directly to developers, because in the review, you're affecting the perceived quality of the game as opposed to your displeasure about the change of a specific build. Is the game itself a worse quality game? I would argue probably not, because I would assume that while they nerfed this build, they probably left the majority of other things still completely viable.
I mean, so the problem is that this, from a developer standpoint, I understand nerfing this build 100%, because infinite combos break your game. It nullifies all strategy.
Especially when you have a leaderboard and daily challenges and yada, yada.
Exactly. Your strategy becomes get the infinite combo or go next. Right? That's what the strategy becomes, and therefore you no longer have a choice. You're only doing that one strategy. However, I still think that the whole review bombing thing has always been a little weird to me, but I'm not seeing it in here. I keep like scanning through it. Have you read through the reviews at all?
Some of them.
Okay, so just reading through, just scrolling down and looking at them, there is one name who is mentioned consistently. Do you know who it is?
Is it the developer?
No. It's a consultant. Someone who consulted on the game. Anita Sarkeesian.
You want to get into that?
No.
Okay.
No, I do not. But I think at the end of the day,
stepping over the landmine.
But I think at the end of the day, I want to put in my 2 cents, and that's, it doesn't matter who a developer consults with or discusses their game with or hires or whatever. Reviews should be an indication of the quality of the game and nothing else.
So here's the difference, right? Okay, whatever you think of her, I have my own opinions. I'm not necessarily a fan of hers. I'm not going to get into it. Bro.
I did it. I did the quickest Google while you were talking. I understand her background.
I'm not going to get into it. I will say I'm not a fan of hers, but did her involvement affect the quality of the game? Which is your point, right?
Right.
And I would argue, especially before this nerf, you could see from the majority of people, no, the game is a good game, right? Now, here's the difference. Let's take a look at Dragon Age. No matter what some reviewers wanted to try to gaslight you in believing, the sales numbers tell the story, right? So you could, in your review for Dragon Age, say, hey, these beliefs and or morals that they were injecting into this game affect the narrative and was constantly thrust into my face. It took me out of the story. That's a legitimate complaint that you could put in a review. But saying you worked with somebody and that's why I'm leaving a negative review, yeah, it doesn't quite make sense. Now, if there's something they specifically made a change of, right? Maybe there's concept art of the game out there where it was this character and it was a character that you enjoyed much better than what it morphed into because of this consulting firm. You could put it in your review, hey, I think the game was worse off from this change that was made in development because of this consulting firm. that would be a legitimate complaint. But again, Slay the Spire 2, widely regarded as a very good game, regardless of her involvement. So yes, the negative review saying, hey, you worked with this person, I'm leaving you a negative review, doesn't make sense to me. What's the quality of the product? Now, if you in your thing want to say, hey, it's a good game, it does this good, this good, this good, I don't approve of the relationship while still giving it a fair review, that's also fine.
Yeah.
But leave a
100%.
fair review.
Correct.
Yeah, it's...
I understand the desire to ensure that the companies and the developers that you like are not, I don't know, interacting with people that you don't want them to, companies or consulting firms, whatever, that you don't want them to. But I'm just going to put it real simply. You can't control fucking everything.
No.
And at the end of the day, as gamers, what we want is a solid game.
True. But you know what you do? Vote with your dollars.
Yeah.
Don't buy the game.
Correct.
And social media exists. Go express your displeasure on whatever social media platform you want. Don't buy the game. Don't give them your money. Go put your opinions out there on the platforms that want you to put your opinions out there. That's what it's for. This whole situation with these review bombs, again, unjustified review bombs, okay? Terrible, and, they were botting it to get higher reviews. So you come in and go, no, it's actually terrible, and here's why. That's a whole different scenario. But review bombing because you don't like something that isn't game quality affecting related is people trying to exact their pound of flesh. That's all. It's at the end of the day, that is what it is. It's people wanting to get tactile revenge for whatever association you don't agree with. That's what it is. Because putting your opinion out on social media doesn't take a pound of flesh from the person you don't like. Leaving a negative review negatively affects potentially the bottom line, as someone may not buy the game because your review bomb.
Right. Now, if we want to get into the Chinese side of things on this, they're complaining largely that the 2026 World Championship meta was destroyed before it even started. And I just want you to look at League of Legends. There is a reason that Riot Games has a specific, Worlds patch, right? And they do all of their major nerfing and buffing on that patch, and then the teams just play that patch for a month or more.
They literally just did that with Counter-Strike. The pros got to test the update before it went live, right? So they had a little bit more time with it than everybody else. But it wasn't a necessarily extensive amount of time, right? They had enough to get a feel for it and know what was going on. And then basically a week before a major, they put the change out to the public. So they're playing with that update at the major. And it was really funny because there were a few scenarios where players the update was making ammo magazine related. So if you had rounds left in a magazine, you lost those rounds when you reloaded. And so you only had a certain amount of magazines. Now, in Counter-Strike, you could spray through smoke, right? And try to hit something or just stop people from moving up or see if you hear or if you get a hit marker or anything like that. Well, not a hit marker, but hear the response of hitting somebody. And there were a couple of times in the major with prominent players where they were so used to having just reloadable ammo being saved, that there were a couple of times where people ran out of ammo. So it was quite enjoyable to see, as it was like, oh no, he doesn't realize that he has 5 rounds left and he can't reload. So,
Oof.
But to your point, that happens in every major game.
Yes, it absolutely does. And I didn't even think that Slay the Spire 2 was getting into friggin' world championship level of gameplay. But
76,000 people left to review. Apparently there's enough people.
Yeah, that's fair. But at the exact same time, it's
Yep.
if
Well,
that's
broken,
what you wanted,
right?
Yeah, it was. It was absolutely broken. Like, literally, you have it in here, the coughing baby boss, right? Before the update, the Chinese community nicknamed the door maker boss the coughing baby because it was so easy to defeat with an infinite combo. Hi, yes, that's why it got nerfed. Like, what did you expect was going to happen?
Yep. Yeah, because you're breaking the game. You're making it not a challenge anymore. And to be clear here, I'm not advocating that things that aren't powerful to be all of them to be nerfed, right? You want things to feel good. You want certain builds and combos and weapons to be powerful, but they can't be game breaking. This just like if there was an update in Counter-Strike that changed it to one of the SMGs or any gun was now perfectly accurate while you were running around. Like, yeah, it's going to be the thing that everybody ends up using, but it breaks the game. You have to update it to fix it. It's not how the game is intended to be played.
Yeah, exactly. And real talk, okay? This is not even close to what they did to Diablo 4. Right? Just to throw another game out there as an example, because they nerfed one thing. They didn't even nerf the entirety of the infinite combo. They nerfed the engine of the infinite combo. When Blizzard put out their first update for Diablo 4, they nerfed 15 builds and buffed none.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, where you still want things to feel powerful. And if you're nerfing 15 things, I feel like that's not the way you go about it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, I understand the interest in being powerful. I understand, and someone found this infinite combo and was like, oh, look at this. This is so cool. Yeah, it is for a little while. But when something is so overpowered that it's no longer getting this would be great, it turns into getting this is necessary. Right? Or I just quit the run and go again.
Yeah, like I didn't get the combo I needed, just restart it.
Exactly. I was planning for it, blah, 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 and now I'm screwed. You go next, right? It's a roguelike. That's what you're going to do. But the point of a roguelike every single time is to make the best out of what you are given.
Yep.
So.
And here's the thing, too. Slay the Spire 1 had workshop and mods. At some point, I have no doubt that Slay the Spire 2, because again, it's in early access. So Slay the Spire 2, kind of on a full release, will have workshop mod support. And you know what you can do at that point? Now, you won't be on the leaderboards, but you know what you can do at that point? You can make your mod and put this right back to where it was if you truly want to play that way.
Yep.
But you won't be on the leaderboards, and that's the point, is you got to make sure the game isn't broken and it's competitive if you're going to have something like a leaderboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so moral of the story is one nerf does not ruin a game. Well,
correct.
I mean, I'm sure we can find an example, but most of the time, one nerf does not ruin a game.
This nerf did not ruin this game.
That's fair. Review bombing is unnecessary. Outside of that, Slay the Spire 2 is a great game. So if anyone is looking for a deck builder roguelite, then you should go enjoy it.
And feel free to start with Slay the Spire 1.
I did.
Me too. I own 2 copies of it.
I only did that recently, though, because it was super on sale because of Slay the Spire 2. So I was like, perfect, let's buy it. All right. I think the bell's probably around the corner.
I think so, too.
Alrighty, people. Close your book. Or books. Pack those bags. Or bags. That's all we have time for this week. We hope you enjoy your time off. And look forward to your participation in the next course.
See ya.
Peace.